Today's podcast is a little something different. It is a glimpse into one of my coaching calls with a client. I've worked with this particular gentleman for a few months now, and he has made bold and courageous strides in crafting his future out of his past and his current work and everything he's learned along the way. I'm incredibly proud of him and thankful that he let me share this with you. Now, a caveat. I am not accredited, schooled coach or accredited business coach or life coach or professional coach. I have no idea what the fuck that means. Because everybody's different. There is no formula. And we all need the same thing. We quite frankly, hang on, let's do that again. Colby, we're going to do something again. We all need the same thing. We quite frankly need to be seen and heard and loved. And in order to move forward, many times we need a sounding board, or we need permission, and we need to know that we're not crazy. All of my calls with my clients are different. Everybody is building a different part of their life or a different part of their career. Some are literally portfolio projects. I'm helping them craft and build the work they present to the world. Others are lessons in creative courage. They use me as a mirror to check their progress. And many calls are super intense with major breakthroughs and tears. And the tears are often mine. But if we do a good job together, the calls are fun, like this one. I hope you enjoy it. And if you're serious about moving ahead in your career, or you're stuck and you're looking for the next horizon, go to jamesvictori.com and there's a little pink button that says book a free call, and we'll talk. Okay, let's do this.
So, how have you been, man?
I've been good. I'm working hard. I got a lot of things going on, a lot of things on my head, which is not always a good thing.
Yeah,
I actually just wrote a post today about about what it takes to keep going.
Yep.
Like the tools that I have to use, that, how I have to go to the gym and I have to take care of my body and I have to exercise to get all the humors, all the demons out of my system.
Okay.
So yeah, I've been good. It's like I'm building a new course, a new school, and it's daunting because it's what you mean. Thank you for filling out. Sending me this letter. This is fucking awesome. But what you write in here is what I'm going through. It's this idea of the self-doubt that creeps in. You're like, I know I'm on the path. I know this stuff is right. I know I'm good at what I do, but self-doubt creeps in. So,
right.
And we have to kind of ignore that, not be stupid about it, but be logical about it and go, okay, let me take it piece by piece and ask. And actually something that's very difficult for me, and something that's, it's good that you and I are talking, but it's difficult for me, is I have to ask for help. So I've got to build the thing and then send it to people and say, hey, poke holes in this, would you? Yeah. And they send them back, and then their holes, I fall into their holes, and I'm like, oh, damn. That's a big hole.
Well, and that's the weird part about it, though, right? Like when I had to keep, like, every time after we talk, and I have to check myself a little bit and ask myself, wait, but do you think that? I have to ask myself that because I need it. Like this whole, like, having you as my coach is crazy for me. It's just crazy for me to even think about. And I had to have a conversation with myself early on and say, hey man, just because James believes it doesn't mean you have to buy in, right? Doesn't mean you believe it too. So I have to really like think about the things that we talk about all the time, not devaluing what you think, but really just the whole point of me talking to you is trying to find a way in my life to be truer to myself.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I feel like a lot of times people ask for too many opinions from too many different people, and then they find themselves stuck.
Yes.
So how do you sort through that?
Yes. I mean, for me, a lot of that process is, it gets stuck in your head.
Yeah.
And like I said earlier, so when things get stuck in my head like that, I've got to go for a run, or I got to go to the gym. And what that does is it gets all we spend like 95% of our time in our head.
Right.
And here's the thing, that's fine, but our heads lie to us, our mind lies to us. That's where all the fears are. Our body tells the truth. I mean, there's literally an important book about the mind-body association. It says the body keeps the score, right? The body remembers everything. The head lies to us. The head is fear.
Yeah.
Right. So for me, separating the fear from truth, and not only separating the fear from truth, but getting to that point where I'm like, okay, Jimbo, what's the fucking audacious answer?
Yeah.
What's my answer?
Yeah.
So yes, it's asking yourself exactly like you said, what do I think? What do I think?
Right.
Yeah.
And it's weird for me to get to because it's a weird place for me to get to because obviously you go to school, you go to college, they don't want they don't want your opinion as much as they pretend like they do, they don't.
That's
You end
true.
up getting their opinion, and then once you start working, you get their opinion, and they don't want your opinion. Right? So it's weird to be in a place in my life where it's like, no, I have to have an opinion, and I have to hold myself accountable to my opinion at all times. And that's kind of where I'm at right now. Like even at work, I just changed my presentation for this last weekend. Like I just did a thing in Vegas, presentation. I did 2 of them this month, and I changed it to be true to myself.
Mm-hmm.
And also I shamelessly wanted to test it. Like
Awesome. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And it just, when people are being honest, you can tell, and I don't know if that's some like physiology. There's this book called Power versus Force that one of the things that it believes is like our souls are like kinesiology a little bit,
Sure.
where you can tell the truth from what's a lie, even if you have no background or basis in what they're talking about.
Yeah, it's the truth. Everything vibrates, and when you match that vibration,
Yeah.
that's where the truth is.
Yeah. So I've been listening to a bunch of your podcasts, and so at this point, I'm ready to just rip the volume knob off and just write all of my copy. And so I was on the airplane flying home yesterday, and I was like, why the fuck? Like, why do we call books creative writing, and then when it's business related, it's copy?
Yes.
Right?
Right.
Like,
Right.
and so I thought, okay, I want to write writing for my business, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I want to have this kind of, I've been reading a lot of Clive Barker lately because I always loved his writing style.
Great.
And
Awesome.
just the way he thinks is so weird. And I think it's like a pretty great mind expander, right? The story I'm reading about is about these people's hands who become self-aware. And all these hands are like liberating themselves from the authority, which is the people's bodies, and they're running around. It's a crazy story. It's kind of a great story and it's pretty ridiculous, but at the same time, he just went for it, and it's a great story.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's awesome to go back to your sources of, and I do that as well. And my sources are people who talk like people.
Yeah.
I dip into LinkedIn occasionally, and I'm like, oh my God, is everybody using chat? Is everybody? It's like they've got there's a basement somewhere in Chicago where they've got all these copywriters chained up.
Yeah.
and they're all spitting out the same stuff. It just sounds like it's like, writing for business. And I get it. But
Yeah.
at the same time, that for me, and my purpose, it doesn't serve me. And for you, it doesn't serve you to write like that. It serves you. You were trying to talk to people on a soul to soul, one to one
Yeah.
level, right? I mean, you're trying to really reach people because you are concerned, you want to do a good job, and you want to make change.
Yeah.
And you don't want to just do the surface treatment.
Right.
So going back to those is super important. I mean, I have found, and like we've said before, for me to talk it into my phone and not sit down and type immediately helps tremendously because, again, I'm just generally talking and driving, so I can't even 100% think about what I'm saying because I'm really, really searching for the truth. And if I say the F word or I make some kind of malaprop, I try to keep it in because it's real.
Yeah. Very good. Very good. So once upon a time, so I've been like just kind of dissecting your own career, trying to figure out, just trying to see it right sized, right? And I think I even put it in that email to you where it's like once upon a time you were really into writing, like you were really into reading big thoughts and big ideas, the philosophy, the poetry, and all of that stuff. But then you were like, no, but I want to be a poster designer. And I feel like what you do today though is you visualize the things, the ideas that you come up with, and the ideas that you come up with are based in this poetry philosophy world.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And was that conscious or was that just I'm just doing what I do? I'm just doing stuff.
The only conscious part is I wanted to tell the truth.
Yeah.
And I know that words are powerful, words have meaning. And I know that poetry is another language.
Yeah.
It's not English.
Right.
It's like comedy.
Yeah.
It's a lie to illustrate the truth.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I that's the core of it. I'm looking at your what you wrote here because it's really great stuff. Yes, and that's like we were talking earlier. That's me I'm just trying to get to the truth.
Yeah.
Like I at one point thought if I became a really great poster designer, I wouldn't need visuals at all. It would just be a big white piece of paper with flush left Helvetica in the corner and just words because that would be enough.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's true or not. And it's also, some images are truly sexy and we need to, pay attention to that.
But when you started your career, and let's just call it for what it is, you were up against the guard of that day, right? So obviously when people are looking at James Victoria's handwriting and the flies having sex with each other, and at the same time, there's things like, Paula Scher is doing her thing, and there's sort of the designer guard, right? Of we'll call it the authority or the hot designers of that day. How did, emotionally, obviously people are talking shit to you at certain points in your career. How did you maneuver that without letting it sort of erode your own sense of self?
It's just having a vision. It's like if you believe in what you're doing, and there were enough people supporting me.
Yeah.
Mostly in Europe.
Right. That's so awesome.
It's like I spoke in Switzerland. At that point that you're talking about, I spoke in Switzerland, and one of my heroes came out of the audience after and said, he said, James, the great thing about your work isn't about what it looks like, but what it says. And I thought, oh, okay, fuck, I'm doing something right here.
Yeah.
And I know that I've said this a million times. I know that with the Dead Indian, my first poster, I know that I professionally shot myself in the foot.
Yeah.
I know there are still corporate workshops that I don't get
Mm,
because they're afraid.
yeah.
I've been paid not to speak
Wow.
by corporations because they're like, wait, wait, who's this guy? Because, and the thing is, it's like, but the truth is, and this is why you and I are working together. The truth is, what they were afraid of is that they thought their people would not come back to work the next day.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, well, they probably shouldn't, because they're generally, I think they're being held captive. And if they don't come back, it's good for them and it's good for you, because you don't want them here, because you don't have their heart.
Yeah.
You don't have their heart. Go find the worker bees that you need, the drones that you need.
Yeah.
But let these people create, let these people find their true purpose, right? So and you say here and you put it beautifully when you wrote me last week. It said, realization hit me that living my purpose might not make me as much money as I make now. I disagree. It's going to be an avenue for income that you haven't even thought about.
Right.
But also you say, but creating work consistently for the first time in probably 20 years is where it's just about doing the work has been liberating. See, these things are important. Tapping into that and tapping into those powers is super important. And you say, just working and feeling the optimistic power of dreaming in the moment is helping to build what feels like real, stable, honest confidence. Motherfucker, that's awesome. Good job.
Thank you.
Good fucking job. Growing a pair.
Right. Well, it is in a weird way. It's changing my aesthetic, and when I audited why I do the drawings that I do of those monsters, I love the laboriousness of it. I think at my heart, I'm a laborer. Like I started my career as a dishwasher. I worked in factories. I always found that kind of work to be, to a degree it cleared my mind out quite a bit. And it also allowed me to see the world at its worst.
Yeah.
Right. Where, okay, I'm going to be here 10 hours and I'm hanging these parts on this factory line and like looking around at all the, people about to go back to prison around me, like, God damn, what am I doing?
Yeah, no, I hear you. I was, brought up in the military. I'm a blue collar guy. I'm a working stiff,
But I also realize that making art in the moment and going back to it to revise it doesn't always feel right. You know what I mean? Where it's like, so it's changing my aesthetic a little bit because it is, with the advent of AI and all that stuff, like, I feel like striving for perfection is like, I do believe that perfection will be the new generic, because AI's got a lock on that market.
Sure. Sure. Which is very freeing.
Yeah, for sure. Because now it's like, well, let's just make it imperfect and still utilizing my, the philosophies of design that I learned, but knowing it's weird too, because it's this duality where I hate the fact that there's so many rules in design, but I know all of these rules in design and I don't necessarily disagree with every single one.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I disagree with, I hate it when I see videos. And one of the triggering things is when they say every designer should do this, every designer should never do this. And it just makes me want to do those things.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. I remember a number of years ago, I was in, I had an exhibition in Japan. So I spent like a week and a half traveling in Japan. And I remember going into shops and seeing the T-shirts that they had for sale. And they had, it was just a collage or a cacophony on one shirt. And they had these English words, American words that were really boring.
Yeah.
Right. But they put them on backwards because it doesn't matter. Right. Yeah. And there was such a level of freedom that affected my work for a good long time. This idea of like, wait a minute, I took the time to actually see in reverse and read the damn thing. Yeah. And
Yeah.
I'm like, oh shit, people will do that. People will make the effort. And what you were saying earlier is designers are often getting rid of that process for people.
Right.
AI is definitely going to get rid of that process. You know, people write to me, I write about AI, and people are like, oh, but you know, I often struggle with the, you know, this or that about my work, and I plug it into chat or whatever, and it helps. And I'm like, no, you're removing the struggle. The struggle is important.
Yeah.
The struggle is important. And even the audience, it's okay if they struggle. Because again, if they walk away, guess what? They're not your audience. And you're gonna catch those beautiful few who will be with you for life, because they're like, dude, you speak to me.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. I do. Yeah, that's interesting.
So, you know, I think yes, the death of perfection would be awesome, even if it's brought on by artificial sources.
Right. And I actually just listened to a podcast where you're talking to, I can't remember the guy's name, about AI. The guy that wrote the book, Prompt Brush.
Oh yeah,
And
Pablo.
and it was interesting because he was actually pretty into AI, but saw the potential pitfalls of it. And me at work right now, we're damn near forced to use it, where it's like, hey, we want you to streamline your processes. We want the shit not to take forever. And I've been fighting the good fight on that as much as I can. But I mean, at a certain point, it will overtake me in my position for sure.
Yes, but that, you know, I often have people saying, you know, talking to me, and they say, you know, but at my job, and I'm like,
Yeah.
wait, no, it's actually not your job. You're in somebody else's seat.
That's a good point.
You're taking up space for somebody else. So
yeah.
and I think the companies that believe that AI is going to remove a certain part of their workforce, and they're happy about it, and they're saying they're ushering it in, they're gonna shoot themselves in the foot.
Yeah.
Because it's gonna, you know, it's like we see AI in movies.
Yeah.
And we fucking hate it. I mean, that's being used at top fucking tier.
Right.
And it's crap. So what do you think, you know, these businesses are going to get out of it?
Right. Well, and OpenAI is talking about going public towards the end of this year, early next year, right?
Mm-hmm.
So one of my theories, because I work in financial services, and strangely have found myself having an aptitude for the things that they talk about in financial services. One of the things that I truly believe is once OpenAI goes public, I mean, they purge billions of dollars a year on this company right now. It is not OpenAI is not a profitable company.
Mm-hmm.
But once they go public, now they have to prove path to profitability. And I think that everybody that's got ChatGPT running wild on their CRM and making email blasts and doing all their work that their employees used to do, it's going to audit that and say, hey, you're going to have to give us $100,000 a month or we will shut off our services, essentially killing all of your workers.
Yeah. Yeah.
I remember in grade school hearing stories about like, hey, watch out because people are going to give you drugs for free to help you get addicted to them. And that was always like an idea that people had. I've never gotten drugs for free, right? Like, I don't know who these people were that were handing them out, but I never got those drugs. But it's funny that it's in our society to think like that. Hey, they're going to give it to you for free, and then you're going to become addicted to it, and then they're going to charge you a lot of money for it.
Yeah, well, we are addicted to it. We're addicted to it, and it's being shoved down our throats. There isn't a single app that I can open that doesn't say, "Would you like me to do this for you?" I'm like, no. And did I tell you that, you know, I wasn't a chat guy, but then it came out that Claude was defending itself against the administration, and I was like, oh, that's cool. Let me check that out. So I open it up and start signing in, and it says, what's your name? What's your, you know, what's this? And then it says, and then the next question is, how shall I address you? And I'm like, oh, fuck no. No, I'm not using this shit. I'm not looking for a fucking friend, Claude. No, goddamn. I guess I'll just go back to my encyclopedias and my Roget's thesaurus and my and my brain and my skills and my talents and my if I can't spell something, I'll look it up. If or I'll just eventually become a good a better writer.
Right.
I mean, chat isn't going to help you become a better writer. It's not going to help you. What you are doing now is that you're doing all this deep diving to find out who you are and find out your voice.
Yeah.
Chat's not going to do that for you. Nothing's going to do that for you except this level of introspection and this level of the searching that you're doing and the struggle, which is awesome. You said, you wrote here you have a whole paragraph here about the goal isn't financial. It's about doing the work that I love in the moment, showing the world who I am, the flaws and all. The consequence of that could be no clients, and I'm good with that. What you're doing when you write that shit and you put that, when you say it to yourself and you say it to the universe, you're creating a wide path of freedom for yourself. And that's powerful because people are going to feel that.
Yeah, once upon a time, this old time Renee, a lot of the shit that I didn't really have a dad growing up. I had a stepdad that really wasn't my dad, and I had a dad that really wasn't my dad. So a lot of this weird advice that I keep going back to as an adult, I got from these old dudes in AA. And I remember, one of the omnipresent things is these old timers are always tell you about is, hey, don't be attached to the result. It may not be what you want it to be. Like, be attached to the now, to the moment. Like, who gives a fuck? It's not going to work out. It wasn't supposed to.
Exactly. You have to love the journey because that's all you got.
Yeah.
And I've known people. I've known millionaires. I've known a couple of millionaires personally. And it's never enough.
Yeah.
There's just there will always be a hole. They're always trying to fill it. So there's a level of gratitude that we all have to assume, right?
Right. Do you know who Aaron Draplin is?
Mm-hmm.
He's got a video on social media right now where he was talking about being on a Zoom call. He's like, and there's 3 of us and there's a billionaire. And the billionaire was in a time zone where it was the middle of the night for him. So he's on the Zoom call with the rest of us. And he's like, and my first thought is, why the fuck are you a billionaire and nobody else on this call is? Right?
Mm-hmm.
And then he's like, and when you think about what that dynamic is, that's not exactly, he calls it apples to apples. He's like, that's not exactly apples to apples, right?
Yeah.
He's like, and if you have $1 billion, why are you still working at your job or your business or whatever it is? Why are you still doing that? He said, I was so uncomfortable that I opted out. I said, I'm not doing this.
Mm-hmm.
My buddy needs a record cover. That's apples to apples. If a business needs a logo, that's apples to apples. I can't be dealing with billionaires because that's not apples to apples, and I become an employee.
Yeah.
And it's interesting though, right?
Yeah.
Have you ever come across that in your career where you're like, wait a second, like they want me to come in here to be their, kind of dancing monkey?
I'm lucky enough that I have not. I have been approached by some companies when I did a lot of when I was my studio back in New York and I did a lot of cosmetic stuff for Bobbi Brown and Aveda and stuff. I got approached by some companies and I did the research and I found out they were, doing a lot of animal testing and they were doing, a lot of bad stuff. And I was like, can't really join that party. So, that kind of thing. But, you can't, if you dig deep,
right,
there's a certain amount of dirt.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It might be who they bank with.
Right.
So it's hard to be 100%, above board.
Yeah.
Unless you make prints, your own little tiny cottage industry.
Right. And is that what you're up to now in your career? Or are you actively looking for client work or like brand deals?
No, I don't actively look. I have a few small clients that I've had forever, and I sign on with them when they need. But I'm not looking. I'm less interested in that these
Yeah.
days. Because, and here's the thing, because I know what I'm capable of.
Right.
And I know what clients are generally capable of. And the alignment isn't there. I
Yeah.
have to work with people who are, aligned and people who trust me. Because if you trust me, you'll get great work. But if you,
Right.
if you just pay me, it doesn't matter how much you pay me.
Right. All right. So I think next step for me is literally take my iPhone starting tonight and just writing what I think the verbiage should be for this website.
Mhm.
When you go into, okay, I need a website for like a book or something, what do you have a concept out the gate on how much copy you're going to put in there? It's like, I'll just fucking purge and edit it down.
Yeah, editing comes later, obviously, right?
Yeah.
What is the expression? Write drunk, edit sober. You know, I write in the morning and I write in the afternoon.
Yeah.
And then the next day I look at that and I try to get to a place where I can just start playing with it.
Yeah.
It's like English literature author Hugh Walpole, a humorist, wrote some really wonderful stuff. And in an interview, they said, Mr. Walpole, how do you write such witty books? And he said, oh, no, I don't add the wit until the 7th or 8th draft. It's like you start with shitty first drafts, right? You should, it's a Anne Lamott expression. You start by just, puking it out.
Yeah.
Trying to get the brass tacks. What is it? What are the things that I need to say?
Yeah.
Right. And it could start as even just a list. I need to say this. I need to say this. I try not to send it around and ask too many opinions because I will drown in that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think the little bit that I've dabbled in AI did that for me.
Yeah.
I got lost in its suggestions and I'm like, yeah, you're a robot. I'm not going to listen to you.
Right.
I need somebody who has success and somebody who's failed. I want to listen to those voices.
Correct. Yep. No,
Right?
I totally agree. That's 100%. I'm 100% on board with that. And that's funny too, because this guy that I worked with said, "Why won't you just train an AI to do that for you?" And it's like, well, I can't, because an AI isn't successful. They don't know the emotional struggle of getting out of this shit that we're in and trying to get into something that literally everybody in your life is telling you real people don't get to do that. You know what I mean? Like AI doesn't know how to deal with that stuff.
Yeah. And as far as the going from shitty first drafts into something real that's when you start trying to add the humanity and the humor. If that's your gig, it might not be, my sense of humor comes from the macabre or the, or the illogical ideas, and I want to add those. And I like using, the malaprops, the wrong word, the wrong phrase.
Yeah.
I like the wrongest idea.
Yeah.
So I try to add those because, again, that's where I'm going to find my audience.
Did you come up with this concept of the wrongest idea? Like organically, or did you hear that? Or were you ideate that with somebody?
Those words, the wrongest idea?
Yeah.
I like puns.
Yeah.
I like puns. And I worked that way for a while when I switched from being a strictly commercial designer when I was doing just like book jackets and album covers.
Yeah.
Into doing some of my own work. I started trying to I realized I was always trying to pick the correct typeface. What's the right typeface?
Yeah.
The typeface that just means exactly that thing. And I realized that's the wrong way to go about it. So I started picking the opposite, using beautiful types to say something ugly or ugly type to say something beautiful. And the same with imagery. right? How to say something beautiful with an ugly image. And then I had this period where Stefan, Sagmeister and I would have lunch together regularly, and we would always kind of just for fun bring a little something that we were working on.
Yeah.
And it was always that, we basically would come up with the wrongest idea, the worst idea possible, but then design the shit out of it.
Yeah.
And turn it into like a very saleable piece.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You make it sound like it's complete sense.
Yeah. That's
taking the wrongest answer and turning it into the right answer. And I found by doing that, I rarely, if ever, got turned down or killed. Yeah. And then of course, you and this is what you're starting to do as well, is then of course you establish a reputation for doing that or being that, and you get hired for that, and it makes it a little bit easier.
Yeah. I actually had a guy this last couple of days ask me, he pulled me aside and said, "Hey, are you doing this through your own company or is this through your own company? Because I really just like to work with you."
Yeah.
I appreciate it, but yeah, this particular thing is through, but it's like, it felt good that this thing was resonating to that degree, right?
Yeah.
Like, hey, I just want to work, because I did say some crazy shit, and I actually did. I even showed that video I saw on your timeline the other day about you don't get to tell me who I get to be.
Yeah.
And that's how I ended the speech. And I said, hey, listen, right now, all of your vendors, all of your IMOs, all of your designers, all of the brand authority is telling you who the fuck to be. And if you started your own business, not to be an employee to a vendor,
Mm-hmm.
And so I went in super hot with that at the very end. And I think that really resonated too, where people were like, holy fuck, like we all do look like financial advisors and we're not.
Yeah. 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 Well, you're speaking to their humanity.
Right.
It's awesome. I'm super proud of you.
I mean, that was a great. Did you do the voiceover in that, or did he do that with AI?
Just for that last little bit.
Yeah, no, that was awesome. It was so like,
he said, James, I did this video. Take a look. I want you to say
so
this thing.
Good. It was so good, and and when you were talking like that, do you know who Harley Race is?
No.
He's this old time pro wrestler that talks like really slow, and he's considered to be like one of the probably the toughest guys in wrestling. He did not give a fuck. You know what I mean? Like he would, if somebody like swerved him, he wouldn't like try to play politics. He would just beat him up. Right. Like, and so everybody was always kind of afraid of Harley Race, even as he got older, like even into his 70s, and he talked really slow. And when just your cadence, I was like, God damn, he sounds like Harley Race. Like, I'll fucking burn your house down if you tell me who I get to be.
That's awesome. Yeah, I recorded it into my phone like 3 times and sent them to him. He said, "Yeah, that's it." And then of course, here's what happens, right? I did it 3 times.
Yeah.
And I sent it. And then I sent him, then I went back and I emailed him and said, "Hey, listen, I'm thinking of, doing it this way." And he's like, "Nope, I already picked one. Bye." We second guess ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even with something just, for fun. And the trick is to not do that. The trick is, the same thing with hand lettering for me. Write it 2 or 3 times, try to pick the first.
Yeah.
Because everything else after that is just judging.
Oh, and that's actually another thing I wanted to talk to you about today. There's this widespread, propaganda in our industry that, hey, your first idea sucks, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then you gotta keep going, as many times, and that's the undefined part that nobody can really tell you is like, well, if your first idea sucks and your last idea is the fucking best, why would you ever stop, right? Why wouldn't you just go on years and years and years and blow
Correct.
the deadline and be showing in museums?
Correct.
What is your thought on that?
You're right. You will, first of all, you'll make yourself crazy.
Right.
Searching. There's nothing more beautiful than a deadline.
Yeah.
Nothing gets done without a deadline.
Right.
You know, for me, for something simple like easy fun voiceover, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna give him 15 minutes.
Yeah.
I'll give it 15 minutes, see what happens. For longer pieces, obviously, I look on the calendar and I go, okay, it's a month out. That's my deadline. Let's go.
Yeah.
Right. Nothing happens without a deadline. And I also think that there's a level of acceptance that we need to acquire, develop, where done is better than perfect is what I like to say. And it's not about doing sloppy work. It's just about accepting that, I'm going to do 1 million pieces in my life.
Yeah.
Some of them will be good.
Right.
I worked for the New York Times Magazine, and they were some of the best and most talented designers in New York. And I got lucky and I did a bunch of covers for them, but I would meet them and I'm like, man, how do you do that? How do you keep it up? And, who was the creative director at the time, she said, James, we do 52 covers. Some of them are going to stink.
Yeah.
It's like, or not even 52. They just do, one every week. It's like, you can't.
Yeah.
You gotta, there's a deadline and you just get it done.
That's really cool. Because that mindset is so freeing. And at the same time, like, it's the first time we talked, you're like, hey, everybody poops. Everybody makes shit that sucks. Everybody. It doesn't matter where you're at in this game. Like, whether you're me, you, fucking polish air, everybody, right? And I've never actually heard somebody say that, even though and I've been to design conventions. Nobody talks about that. Hey, we're making fucking burners on a daily basis that we don't give a fuck about, that are never going to see our portfolio. We're not going to sign our name to. Who cares, right? We're like trying to not be homeless at a certain point in our career.
Yeah. Also, what you're doing when you teach yourself that the level of acceptance and literally fecking perfection, what you're teaching yourself is a level of trust, that you're trusting your work, you're trusting your words. And you might look at it once it's, of course I hit send.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, you know what I should have done?
right.
So save it. Save it. It'll be in the next one. Don't worry. Don't worry. There's, often with these types of things, I always, my go-to is always the humanity. It's never the professionalism. It's never the money. It's never the perfectionism. It's always the humanity. Walk away being the best that you can be.
Yeah. So in one of these podcasts, you talked about the Tao and how it's like in there's this idea of like within the simple, it contains complex, and within the complex it contains simple ideas, right?
Yeah.
I was kind of mulling over that for a couple of days, thinking about maybe like really auditing how I felt about design, why I feel the way I feel. And not that I can't appreciate it though, and I want to like always make that really clear. Like, hey, I'm not just like torching the entire industry and saying you guys fucking suck. But I am challenging it a little bit. And this idea of, with modernism, with this kind of modernist aesthetic where everything's got to be clean and super simple and very referential, I think my bigger issue with it is that we're taking simple ideas and executing them in a simple way that never really has anything deeper to it. Like when I look at it, and I'm talking a lot lately, like I hate him, but I don't hate him because I can appreciate what he appreciates about his work. I just think it's so surface, where he's like, oh, it's called Firestone Pizza, and I made a piece of pizza in a flame as one icon, and that was the logo. And it was like, his stuff is always like the simplest is always the best. But there's no, for me, like when I make stuff, I have to have a little black leather jacket moment, where it's like it's badass. There's a rebelliousness to it. There's an excess to it that maybe it doesn't need, but the reason it's there is to show you like, hey, we got double middle fingers going at all times. Like that's my person a little bit.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, what you're talking about again, it's the humanity thing. You want it. I mean, the work that you're talking about is it, I wanted to give you words. It's got no meat on it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's got no meat on it. You can't simplify that much. There's no complexity to it.
Right.
That's if we're gonna talk about the Tao Te Ching, there's no complexity to it.
Yeah.
It's just simple. And you know, it's been thoroughly digested, you know, and it's completely, you know, absorbent, and you know, all these
That's
toilet
such a
paper.
great line, by the way, in your podcast, where I could go through the critics' digestive system.
Yeah, and come out unscathed.
So,
Yeah,
did you?
but there's
write
nothing
that out to read, or did you just say that? Did you just come up with it?
I think I probably used that line before.
Yeah, it's so fucking great.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's how I try to, you know, we simplify these things down exactly. So it'll pass through a committee, and everybody nods their head and goes, "Yep, that says pizza. That says pizza. Yep." You know,
Right.
but at the end of the day, it does nothing for the viewer.
Yeah.
You know, and what you want is that level of complexity within simplicity.
Well, and I think, I think one of the things that I always preach about branding is you have to give people something to support, even if it's the idea of your overarching story. Where it's like, I started here and now I'm here. Yeah, I'll get behind that before I can get behind Amazon, right? I'll buy my shit at your store instead, because like that's a piece of my own brand doctrine that I try to put into every brand, where it's like, look, if you're human enough, people will see your humanity, and at the very least they'll support you before they'll support somebody else, because your story is reflective. They'll see some empathy of their own self.
Correct. Correct.
And I just, as much as I see the word authenticity on LinkedIn, it feels like it's a marketing campaign, you know? Like, hey, don't forget to be authentic. And then you look at their fucking profile picture and they're like, oh, I'm wearing it's like, I'm not sure what I'm looking at.
Well, my argument over on those pages are all the crappy AI art.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know? So yeah, how authentic is, you know, that?
Right.
Yes. Yes is your answer.
Very good. Very good. No, I appreciate this time with you, because it does give me a baseline. Especially somebody like me, man, where I feel like in my heart, I feel like these ideas are resonant and they're good ideas for myself, and I am being true to myself. But over the course of a day, you know, it's like being in a sandstorm. Being in the world is like being in a sandstorm a little bit, where it's like, no, you should just be grateful, you know. And I believe in being grateful, but I don't believe in being grateful as a form of self-imposed slavery, to say, okay, VP of marketing is what I am. That's what I got to be happy with it. You got further than most, and, you know, go to the beach. I don't know what people do with their free time when they're, you know what I mean? I'm just not that guy.
Well, I mean, what happens most times, the people who are attracted to me and my work are the ones, you know, are like you, people who are like, hey, I was a creative kid. You know, 7-year-old me was awesome. Which actually is funny, because I just wrote this morning a piece and I ended with, you know, 7-year-old Jimmy would be very pleased, right?
Yeah.
But you know, I was a creative kid. I went to a creative college, you know, or creative school, got a degree. I got a creative job. Why do I drive home every night, crying?
Yeah.
You know, and the thing is, because it's just a job now.
Yeah.
It may have never been creative.
Right.
And you're frustrated.
Yeah.
You're creatively frustrated because you know what you're capable of, and you're not pursuing that. And that sucks.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a bad feeling.
Yeah.
And I would rather, get people to be more adventurous, take a chance, and find out what you can do.
Yeah.
You quite frankly have this awesome, Lamborghini, or this Porsche that you've built in your garage. You've never taken it for a test run.
Right, right. So
Let's
true.
let's go see what it can do.
Yeah. No.
Carmen Gia would be maybe the better vehicle to choose, but whatever.
Right, right.
That's one you could actually build yourself.
Right, right. No, I love that. Yeah, because it is liberating. Just the pursuit of it. Just the hey, opening some subject. Okay, let's get into this. It's interesting because it's almost like writing your own doctrine or your own manifesto of no, this is actually what I think. And it's weird how long it takes to get to the truth of how I myself actually feel about something. Because you have that emotional blinder a little bit where I mean, I'm a recovering drug addict and alcoholic. I do unreasonable things all the time. So when I read something on LinkedIn and I'm triggered by it, I'm not always in the know of why I'm triggered by it. It's is it another corporate fuck saying stupid shit, or am I? Because a lot of times I find myself, especially at Momentum, which is, I always find myself feeling hollow afterwards. That's our big event where they hire big dollar speakers and they all get everybody super excited, right?
Uh-huh.
And I watch these speakers and I've realized over the last couple of years, the reason I get so irritated and so triggered by watching these speakers is because I know I could do what they do and I know I could do it better than they could.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not. And so instead of being the big dollar guy on stage, I'm the employee on stage that does a better fucking job.
Yeah. 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 And I think the average human version of that is sitting in in the movie theaters at Hunger Games and going, fuck, is relating with the hero so strongly.
Yeah.
And I'm the one who says, why do you think that's not you?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's completely you.
Do you think most people think that, though? Do you think most people are no?
Yeah, why do you think Star Wars is so huge? Right?
Right.
We relate with both the hero and the rebellion.
Yeah.
But we don't get to have it in our lives. So we have it in our, it's like why Sex and the City was such a big TV show, because people weren't having sex in their lives. They had it on TV.
Right.
You can think about it. Or that whole line of books is available, right? The romance novels,
right?
So we can feel that in our lives, and I enjoyed that, but I want it in my life too.
Yeah,
I want the rebellion. I want to be the hero. I want that passionate sex. I want all those things.
Have you read the book The War of Art?
Yeah.
So, do you think most people would rather be in the Colosseum and not in the battle? In the book, it kind of proposed that idea where creatives would rather die on the battlefield in the Colosseum than have to sit in a seat in the Colosseum and watch it and be a spectator.
I always used the Lady and the Tramp analogy. Who do you see yourself as? As the lady, where you're taken care of and all your meals are there and you're prompt, you're comfortable, but you can't do this, you can't do this, you can't do this. Or are you the tramp, where you're scruffy and you fight for it and you get your thing and you're, I think at different parts of our lives, we are different. We as Whitman says, we contain multitudes, right? We want it all. I can't imagine life without hot showers.
Right. So good.
Not even penicillin, just hot showers.
Yeah. It's weird though, because in our world, it's hard to. I find myself having to emotionally and intellectually regulate myself, where it's hey man, Like, it's fine to disagree with a thing, but not necessarily hate it, or not necessarily hate the, you know what I mean? Because it's such a snowballing effect.
Sure. No, I hear you. And I find myself, especially when, again, we start talking about AI and stuff, I find myself being, vehemently against, and I have to
Yeah.
catch myself and go, dude, that's just not, first of all, it's just not cool.
Yeah.
It works for some people. Some
Yeah.
people need that. That's great. I don't deny anybody anything. Right. But I think being a hater just isn't conducive.
Right.
Right. I think we have to be open to everything and say, hey, listen, that's not my gig.
Yeah.
I'm going to be speaking in Dusseldorf next month. And I know for a fact there are, major AI proponents who are going to be on stage, and I can't go up every time and punch them in the nose and go,
right.
This is not going to work. Different strokes for different folks. I mean, the world moves on.
Yeah. So what are you going to talk about in front of a bunch of AI people?
Oh, I don't know. I'm wavering between a couple of different. One, I want to get up there and be the American and go, okay, we're not all like that, okay, man. Right. We'll see. I've got a bunch of things I want to share. So
that's awesome, man.
I don't talk about my work anymore, so we'll
really
see. Yeah, and I don't show slides anymore either.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's because I've realized that stand-up comedians don't have slides.
Yeah, that's a good point.
They just have points. They have something to say. I mean, I've got something to say, and I have to stand by that and understand that it's enough.
Yeah, that's badass. I just saw this guy named Inky Johnson. He was a football player. He was going to be in the NFL. He was going to be fucking awesome. Hey, you're going to be a top 30 draft pick. And when he was in college, he went to tackle a guy and was completely paralyzed. Like, it was just a weird hit, became paralyzed over the course of the next couple of months, maybe a year. He started getting feeling back, but he never got his arm atrophied. He can't use one of his arms. It's really weird looking. And he was like, you know what? And he just flipped his perspective on it and was like, I was never going to be what I was supposed to be had this not happened. Like, I would have been a pretty good player in the NFL, and people would have forgotten me, a couple of years after my career was over, and that would have been the end of it. But because this happened to me, now I can be a real force of change in the world and say, hey, you're going to put in all the work. You're going to do all the shit, and it's going to be fucking awesome. And all of that shit that you worked really hard for, that you put everything that you went all in for, can be taken away. Somebody can still take it all away. It can all be gone just like that. So think about that and recalibrate your mindset and what you're up to. And it's kind of in line with your, hey, everybody should go to a funeral once a year.
And you're talking about yourself now, right?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
You're talking about yourself, all the stuff that you heretofore believed in and worked hard for. Like, now you gotta, attitude and perspective. Because without that, you've got nothing.
I recorded so I've recorded like 6 podcasts so far, and I've scrapped them all because they sounded like, actually the last one was pretty good. The second last one I thought was pretty good. And I just wasn't quite, I feel like I was doing a lot of research. I was talking about a lot of topical things and not really speaking my own truth. But this last one, so the whole part of my podcast is I do a little introduction, tell a little story about myself, and then go into like 2 or 3 different topics of just things that I found interesting. So the first break was 3 logos that exist, are still being used today, that literally break all the rules of branding and design. And each one of them in a different way. And one of them I use the Sherwin-Williams logo, because that's the logo that everyone's like, that thing's such a pile of shit. But I love the fact that Sherwin-Williams is still a growing company, and they just don't give a fuck.
Oh, you're talking about Covers the Earth?
Yeah.
I just saw it on the back of a truck recently, and I was like, that is fucking
badass.
Hero. That is
I know.
So good. I have tried to rip that off so many times. Unsuccessfully.
It's just so good because it's so it really is so anti everything, and like even like I can only imagine the poor environmentalist that's like, what the fuck am I looking at? You
Yeah,
know,
let's cover the earth with paint.
and Sherwin Williams is like, we're passionate. We're passionate. What the fuck? I'm sorry. You know?
It's so good. Hey, don't throw anything away, dude.
Yeah.
You know.
And I still have all those podcasts, but I just felt like I was trying to do stuff instead of doing stuff from the heart. So I did the 3 logo thing, and then I told a story about a professor that kind of changed my life in school that he didn't realize that he did, and he actually died recently. And so that's that first podcast. So it's a mix of like personal stories, and then just like, hey, here's some weird shit that I found that actually informs us that, hey, just because we're graphic designers and we decided to build all these fucking rules for everything doesn't necessarily mean we have a lock on identifiability or we have a lock on the emotional trigger, you know?
Yeah, super. You know, it's funny. You reminded me. I saw something the other day. I was out with my kids, and I saw something the other day, and it triggered a memory and something I have stowed away somewhere. I'm not quite sure where it is, but I was out walking when I lived in owned an apartment in Soho a bunch of years ago. I was walking on the sidewalk, and there was a whole stack of boxes sitting in the garbage, and one of them had this sticker on it.
Yeah.
And I was like, what? Right? It was like one of these, a good idea enters through the eye and explodes in the brain.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Right? And I look at it, I'm like, what? So I go and I tear it off. I tear that label off, that flap of the box, and I kept it. And the sticker was for it was basically should have said fragile.
Yeah.
And the company made, it was a company that made one-of-a-kind hats.
Yeah.
In Soho. And the sticker said, caution, hats. And I'm like, oh my God, that is so great. Like, what about form and content? And what about puns? What about poetry? What about, oh my God. And it was just like one of these stickers that you can order over the phone. You just pick a typeface and pick a size.
Right.
And
it was just like the shittiest sticker, but they're like, oh, don't say caution hats.
Caution hats.
so
good. I could write a whole book on that. It was so good.
Super awesome. So the same guy that said, hey, you should look into James Victoria's stuff, because I think that's kind of what you're up to. He was a professor, and he's like, I was showing him something, and he's like, no, I hate that. It's like, he's like, it'd be like if I was wearing like a white t-shirt and it just said in Helvetica t-shirt. And then he pauses, and the whole class is like paused. And I said, I think I'd actually buy that shirt. And he goes, I would too. That's a really bad example.
It's good.
Yeah. But
one last note is when I was in art school, there was this I'd never seen I was from upstate New York. I was a rube off the farm.
Yeah.
And I was in New York City, and there was a kid named Ethan who I wish I still knew him. He was totally punk and would I think he was an alcoholic then, but he would come in with a flannel shirt and a t-shirt on underneath. But the t-shirts he just made like with a paintbrush, and he always said, I hate something.
Right.
Every single one said, I hate something. And my painting instructor, loved Ethan, thought Ethan was a hoot. And, I remember one day the instructor says, hey, Ethan, who do you hate today? And he opens his shirt and it says, I hate you. And the timing was like so good. So good.
That's awesome.
I think it might have even just been the letter U, handwritten on a t-shirt. Very, very Patti Smith. It was so good.
So awesome. Yeah, I love stuff like that. Just making his own clothes. Like, I can't compete with all those designer brands those kids are wearing. I'll just make my own. Like, I love that concept, like, I'll just tell them how I feel on my t-shirt.
So good.
Yeah.
And of course, it's just genius. And then you see Madonna wearing it, and or she made her own. Joan Jett made her own. All this,
Yeah,
so great stuff.
for sure.
Okay. Hey, you're doing beautiful work.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that.
I appreciate it. I respect that. Good job.
Thank you. No, I appreciate that. And yeah, I just feel like I wouldn't have, like, obviously I wouldn't have gotten it out of AI. And I do appreciate just the honesty, like, I just feel like most people aren't that honest, and everybody that sells stuff, which is what I appreciate about you in that video where you're like, yeah, I mean, design's good for selling socks, but no.
Yeah. Well, I'm just, I'm turning you on to yourself.
For sure. And I appreciate it, man.
Okay, groovy.
All right, we'll talk soon.
Okay, bye.
All right, bye.